Welcome to the Mick and Pat show. I'm Mick.
And I'm Pat.
And we're coming just a couple weeks before Christmas. Hopefully, y'all have listened to our gift giving and guide episode for getting that man in your life a gift this holiday season. We're joined by a special guest this evening, my dog Takani, who is just chomping on her black Kong and trying to get the chicken out of it. Pat, this is your first time meeting a dog ever in real life.
the very first one. If this was the very first dog I ever met in real life, I will say I'd be terrified
because of how big they are.
Because of the size,
yeah, and
the ability that this beast has. Now, since it's not the first dog I've ever met, I'm not terrified. I actually think this is a great dog. And
man.
Over the years, I think I've expressed some of my strong opinions about dogs and dog ownership.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-dog.
I think we both have, though. I think we both have expressed how we're anti how would you say? Like, just not actually training your dog.
Yeah,
like,
bad dog ownership.
Bad dog ownership.
Bad dog owners I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
And so, but this dog walked in here. She came over to me. She greeted me, but by slowly walking over and just putting her face near me.
Yeah.
Which is the perfect introduction from a dog, instead of either, barking, jumping up and down, jumping up on you, licking, getting super hyper. She really couldn't care less if I was here or not, but she was happy to come get a pet. So
yeah,
and now she's just working on that last piece of chicken. She's trying to roll it out of there, and I love the way she moves. Funny, like she is still a puppy, even though she was just like an 80-pound dog. She's gonna
at least
thick,
now,
but like she's gonna thicken out.
Yeah, I think she will. We still walk her like over 5 miles a day.
Yeah,
to just try to get the energy out. Yeah, I think she'll put on a little bit more weight, but I don't think she'll put much more on because we're like overfeeding her right now to try to catch her up.
Right.
Because when we got her, her ribs were showing and her back was a lot more like bonier.
Yep.
So, but once she gets to that healthy weight, we're gonna cut it back and just give her what the doctor recommended scoops are.
And then she'll still like over the next year still get a little just like thicker.
I think she'll get a little bit wider hips and a little bit stockier shoulder plates. You know what I mean? Because apparently they're not done growing. Their bones aren't done growing yet, and you can't run with them until or play super hard with them.
Like get taking them full speed.
Like you're not supposed to like run them up and down the stairs a ton or like wrestle with them too much. Now we do wrestle. She's great at it and very gentle. And she's very, very, like, she's learned how to do, like, the gentle, like, teething on your leg or your arm to, like, play around. But, like, apparently when they're fully grown, like, you can really be, you can essentially tackle them down a mountain.
Throw them around.
Yeah.
Tackle them. And good work, because we're up some stairs.
Thanks, man.
How did it go with these ones?
She got halfway up them. And then it was like a cat where she just laid across at the middle and just was like laid down, looked at me and was like, can we please not go up anymore? And I was like, no, we're going, come on. And I didn't have to pull her up, but I just kind of go up a couple stairs and that puts the leash puts tension on her collar and her collar is not like gonna choke her out, but it cinches when she tries to pull away. And so the whole training method is like, you go until there's tension on the collar. So that way they feel it and they know the direction you want them to go. And if they fight it and try to go the opposite direction, then it starts cinching uncomfortably. And they know the moment they stop doing that, it relieves tension. And then it's an incentive, to come to you and go the direction you're going.
Get comfortable.
But like a lot of people online would be like, those collars, you're trying to suffocate your dog and choke it out. I'm like, no, because you don't pull. Like if you walked with that leash and you were just dragging her around and constantly yanking or pulling on it, that would actually breed a really aggressive dog. That would be like fearful and, scared of you.
Right.
And so, and not like respectfully scared of you or respectfully fearful, but a dog that's like, I'm confused, I'm scared, and I'm going to bite you because I don't want you to be near me. So you just kind of make sure that like, it's just enough of like a indication. It's kind of like, I think like the best way to think about it is like, imagine someone tied a rope through your belt loops. And if you ran away from them, it'd cinch. And you would know it's tight around your waist and hips, and you're not going anywhere if you keep pulling this direction.
Right.
And actually, the harder you pull, the more uncomfortable it's going to get, but you're not going to die. Right. You know what I mean? And so that in the moment you stop trying to run away, you feel tension immediately release. And so then it's like, oh, okay, all right, if I go this way, if I go over here, there's no tension. So that's kind of how we get her to like not pull on the leash, because she is a big dog and she could rip my arm out.
Yeah.
But that's also how like we get her up the stairs too. But dude, it's gotten to the point now at home where she will come down just to check on me and say hi. I'll be working in my basement office.
Okay.
And she just loves to come down, say hello, realizes I'm boring and working.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, this is just as boring as what mom's doing. So then she'll go upstairs and just see mom. And she's like, you both are boring. And then she'll just go play with her toys.
Wow.
But like, it's a huge improvement over like the last couple of weeks. And she's like very happy to come down. Like whenever she comes down the stairs, she's like so happy to see me. It's like weird. It's a really weird thing. It's like, I don't know if she knows I'm down there and she's just coming to see.
Yeah.
And she's so happy when I am,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I've been down here for like 8 hours. So it's like, what do you expect?
That's fun.
Yeah. She's a good dog.
Is. He's a good dog. And it's good to have a good dog. Bad dogs can just be so draining, stressful. It's like you're always like worried about them running off. You always have to like this or whatever, like pooping on the carpet, running away, biting people, whatever. It's like just a pain. So
she is we're noticing she's got a little bit of a chewing problem, but that's more than anything. I think they say from what I read online, that's like a puppy anxiety thing with separation. Hence why she's here tonight.
Did she make a no while you were gone?
She one day I came downstairs and within 10 minutes of Billie Jean having left after walking her. Oh no, sorry, Billie Jean didn't have time to walk her. She was running late for work. So she left the house, didn't have time to feed her, and then I go downstairs and like in that window of 10-15 minutes, she had opened her bed and pulled all the stuffing out. Which is okay. It's a dog bed. It's not the couch. But then another time we were gone. We were gone this last Sunday for a Friendsgiving thing. Pie contest. And we were looking on the camera. Everything was fine. Within the 15 minutes of like not looking at the camera and driving home, opening the door, tissue box torn open and just Kleenex everywhere.
All right.
I think she has a huge fascination for snow. She loves snow. When I walk her with snow out, like on the ground, like fresh snow, she will walk with her tongue open and mouth open and just shovel snow into her mouth. And she loves to like lay out and splay her legs and just slide around on it. She just thinks it's a blast. So part of me thinks like Kleenex and stuffing, it just seems like snow to her. Because when we went there, like, and we got home, I was pulling Kleenex out of her gums.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, okay, I don't know if this was like a destruction fun or like I can eat this fun, Yeah. So, but she's picked up a couple shoes. She's picked up the remote and my phone. She hasn't destroyed any of them, but I did notice this morning there are definitely some like, what is this marks on the remote?
Yeah.
And it's like, if she wanted to destroy it and break it, it would have been. But like, I think she tasted it to try to understand what it was. And none of our shoes are wrecked, but she has picked them up and moved them around a couple times. So it's like one of those things of like, all right, let's bring her around with her. And also this is good practice because it helps her get over anxiety in the car. We throw her in the hatchback of the Subaru and she whimpers and then realizes, nothing about her situation is going to change and it's best to just lay down and ride. And she's getting better every time in the car. And if we bring her to podcast every week, then eventually she'll be super chill with that. Yeah. She'll be better with the stairs. And She's a good guess, I guess. She just sits there quietly, not disrupting us. But that's kind of the plan right now. Until we can, I think what we're going to try to do is that bitter spray.
Mm-hmm.
You just spray it on stuff that it's like non-scented, organic, so it's not like poison, but it's a special flavor that dogs just hate. Mm-hmm. And you spray it on your pillows, you spray it on your shoes, and they just realize like the moment they lick it, they're like, ugh. It doesn't make them throw up, but it's like a nasty flavor to dogs.
They don't want to be around it anymore.
Yeah, and that's just a good thing to do. You don't even have to like spray it on every shoe. You just spray it on the shoes that the dog's going to, and then the dog realizes sooner than later, oh, I shouldn't put shoes in my mouth. Mm-hmm. They taste bad. So, but anyways, that's the doggy stuff. Pat, you got any stories? I got like 3 stories loaded up that I forgot to tell you about, or that like have happened that I want to.
Yeah, no. So this is a short one, but I was late to getting to the podcast because I was cruising here, coming down the road. I was coming over the big bridge, and I'm kind of just like cruising, listening to my podcast. Not my own podcast, listen to someone else's podcast.
Yeah.
But, and I kind of out the corner, I'm like, as I'm turning, this bridge curves to the left as you come around it. And there's like bushes and statues and stuff in it. And so I'm like, oh, a statue. And I was like, oh, that statue's kind of in the road. And I was like, oh, I think that's a person, you know?
Ooh.
And so then I'm like, this was a person as I'm coming in hot. I put my brakes on, put my hazards on. And there's a guy stumbling in the middle of the road, like, blanket over his shoulders, slow stumbling, just dead middle of the lane.
Really?
Yeah. And so I turned my hazards on and actually block the whole road. It's great to have a big truck.
Yeah.
Because people just have to do what you say sometimes. Yeah. So I was like, put my hazards on, went diagonal on the road, blocked the whole road for a second. There weren't that many cars, but it was just like, listen, we got to not kill this guy for the moment, you know?
Yeah.
And then I was like, hey, you know, and he's like, he was really stumbling around and, you know, not in good shape, and clearly transient. Is like, hey, I need someone to take me to the hospital. You know, I'm like, all right, you know, like what's going on? He's like, I'm not right, man. I'm not right. So I'm like, all right, well, get in. So
really,
yeah. So
you gave him a ride to the hospital.
Well, so I load him up as he's getting in, and then at that point, I'd pulled. I was only in one lane.
Yeah.
With the hazards on, and he's like getting in the car, like about to get in the car, and this lady comes by and rolls the window down and just screams, "You can't be parked here." Well, yeah, I know I can't park on the road, like on a bridge.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'd like to refer to her as what I think what she is, the dumb bitch. So this dumb bitch, you know, screaming, like takes the time to roll her window down and yelled that at me. I'm just like, whatever. I like to say it didn't get to me, but kind of got to me, just like whatever, you know.
In the middle of like doing a good Samaritan thing,
yeah,
you're just like
and it helped my perspective too, just being like, yeah, like, all right, like some people, man, whatever.
Some people's mothers, grandmothers.
Yeah, F them. So got the man in there, and then he's like, I clicked on all my like cabin lights, kept some window roll down, start driving, and I had to flip a Yui, and like as we're going, like he starts like he like puts a hand like in his pocket, you know, and I'm like, hey man, like I didn't say that, but I was like, hey, just like let's like keep our hands out of our pockets, you know. He's like, oh, I'm not doing anything, like shoots it out, like because like he's somebody who's probably had encounters with police before, and like he just like shoots it, I'm not doing anything, you know, and I'm like, it's all right, you know, it's okay, let's just take it easy, you know.
Yeah.
I'm flipping U-turn, headed to the hospital, and then he's talking about his dog. He lost his dog. He can't find his dog.
Shit.
And that's his main thing. He's starting to lose his mind. And so as we're going to, then he says, you know, and then he keeps like, and then he reaches down again kind of, and I can see he's trying to get his seatbelt on.
Oh.
You know, it's like, okay, that's fine. But he's reaching, you know, I'm like, hey, you know, and I kept looking down, and he could tell I was looking, and, you know, he was like, I just want to put my seatbelt on. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then he takes his whole quilt. He has a quilt blanket around his head, around his neck. He like puts the whole thing up where I can't see and puts it over his head, and he's messing around in there. I was like, hey man, like you just gotta like keep your hands where I can see him, you know. And he just like slows blanket. I'm not doing anything. Like if we're getting a wreck, I don't want to die, you know. It's funny, a certain like, bro, you're just walking in the middle of the road. Like this is way safer than what you were doing before. Anyway, his name was Brandon. And
Brandon.
he started talking about his dog. And as we're getting close to the hospital, he's like, actually just dropped me at this Mexican restaurant. That's where I lost my dog. I'm like, all right, which is near the hospital. So I pulled over and he would not get out of the car, dude.
Really?
He was just like, I didn't give any like very clear, firm, like get out of the vehicle, but it was just like, hey man, this is where you want to be? He's like, yeah. And then he was telling me about, the situation. It's sad, he's like, I don't want to stay at the homeless shelter, like he's like, I've been sleeping under a bridge and people are fighting down there and I don't like being around fighting. And then he's like, I don't want to go in the homeless shelter. People, I've been touched there before. I don't like getting touched. I was like, yeah, I know, like all this stuff. And so I'm like, I'm sorry, man, that sucks. And then he started crying because he lost his dog. He's like, that's the only thing holding me together. And then he's like,
oh my gosh, this dude was like having, how old was he?
Probably 45 to 50. It's he get 35 to 55, kind of depending on length of time under a bridge. Yeah, so he's like, and he's missing all his front teeth and stuff and just bad shape. But he's like, I came here from Wyoming to try to be safe and I keep getting touched and people are fighting me and I lost my dog. And it's like, and I'm, felt bad for him. He's like, I don't even have clean underwear, all this stuff. And, but he kept getting locked in on the dog and he kept kind of doing that thing that, people who are in a bad mental space do, where he kept kind of like looking at me and telling me to give him his dog back also. That kind of like, I'm asking you nicely. Can you give him my dog? Like, hey, I don't know where your dog is. I hope you find her.
I don't have the doggy.
But when we're slipping in between in and out of like reality and stuff, it's like, okay, like time to get out of here. I gave him a 20. I don't know what he's going to go do with it. But, it was like, threw him the 20 and then sent him. He finally got out of the car, shut the door, and I headed on back to the podcast studio. And, my heart went out to him. I felt bad for him. I did feel a little, there's 2 times he reached, like with putting the blanket up, I did feel very uncomfortable. I was like, all right, like, just this, and, he's just trying to get buckled. That's fine. But still, he was definitely in a mental state that was, he could do something he didn't mean to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's always the sad thing is like, you got to be so careful with just like it is entirely absolutely unpredictable. And I've had like, back in the day when I helped and worked in the sheriff department would, be bringing people into intake. You should have no idea how they're going to react because they can be one way. And like, we had police all the time, like be like, oh, this guy is totally uncooperative. He's spitting, freaking out, or she's, biting and trying to tear off her seatbelt and pull on her cuffs or whatever and saying she's going to kill us, saying she's got a gun in her pocket. And I'm like, oh, geez, well, one, why didn't you pat him down? But like, it's constantly like that stuff. And then and then they get there and they're totally cooperative and chill and like they have no like desire to be uncooperative. And you're like, okay, like they're just making a decision and they're flipping, on a dime because they're just not healthy.
Yeah.
Or it's the other way is like cop rolls up. He's like, hey, this guy's chill. Yeah. Fine the whole time, did a full pat down, took everything off him. And then we got to get him and he's like, maybe it sets in for him for a moment.
Yeah. They're
like, oh, I'm going to jail. And they like lose their mind and they absolutely go, batshit. And you're like, you're having to friggin' punch people and put them in like restraint like positions to get them to cooperate.
And the people who are going a little crazy, mental health issues or drugs, like, once this switch can flip in them where when you become the object of their issue, for instance, like in his case, a couple times where he like thought that I could provide his dog back to him. I saw it flip twice in his eyes where I became.
Wait, now you are the bad guy.
Yeah, the issue or like, something to overcome. It's like, and you've probably seen that happen too, where it's like all of a sudden, once they fixate on something and you're the thing keeping them from that thing, it can become a problem really fast.
Yeah, without a doubt. Anyways, pretty crazy stuff. That's insane, bro. You didn't tell me that while we were just sitting here chilling, which is, fine. But I just was like shocked that was the real reason why you were running behind.
And I was just saving it for your first reactions, and
that's a good podcaster. Well, I guess I'll tell you. Did I tell you about the JB's wedding? Up in Steamboat?
You told me about some of it.
Did I tell you about how the Airbnb caught on fire?
No.
All right. So we were up in Steamboat. Really cool thing. My buddy had this super small wedding. Mm-hmm. It was pretty much just the wedding party of like 8 or 9 people on either side. Mm-hmm. And then it was family, like a close immediate family and some grandparents, and then a few close friends. But I think in total it was like 45 or 50 people in its entirety, including bridegroom, family, wedding party. And so most of us that were like in the wedding party and just kind of like friends and stuff stayed in the Airbnb that we set up and, you know, laid out to be the actual wedding. Because there was these giant, awesome A-frame windows just looking out over Steamboat's, you know, valley, the Yampa.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just gorgeous. And then after the wedding, you know, we take everything down and we're dancing, or not really dancing that much, but like more just like hanging out, eating food, enjoying time, drinking. And JB and his new bride leave after the wedding to go to the hotel in Steamboat where they're going to stay at before they caught their flight to St. Lucia. And we're hanging out and stuff, and they leave, and then, you know, it's just friends and wedding party enjoying this just insane, unreal bedrooms up top. Each bedroom had its own bathroom and shower, and then it was like 5 bedrooms in the basement. One was a master. Everything had its own bathroom and shower. Then there was the sauna in the basement, the gym, and then the main level had like the double kitchen, living room area,
pretty
and like
serious.
Oh yeah, there was attached 2-car garage, and the back had a big old hot tub, and so we go to bed Saturday after some hot tubbing and are sleeping, and then I'm just, you know, in La La Land, just dreaming. Billie Jean and I just, you know, had a wonderful evening and just were in our beauty sleep. And then hear this frantic knock on our wooden door, and I was like, I sit up immediately, just like, and like I wear like a this is how tactical I am.
You wear a tactical sleeping mask?
No, seriously. I wear a sleeping mask over my eyes that is Bluetooth connected to my phone, so I can listen to my audiobook comfortably.
Oh, it's all connected.
Yeah, it's like the old school soft foam headphones that are built into the sleeping mask. And so when you're not sleeping, you can just pull it up and it's just nice soft headphones.
You're looking like the reading rainbow guy from Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly. LeVar Burton.
Yeah.
And so but like every time I like wake up, it's like always like discombobulated across my whole face and crooked and all that. And so I see Billie Jean leap up, and she's in pajamas and it's pretty, you know, she's decently dressed. I'm just in skivvies. I also have this problem, dude. Just side note. It's important for you to know this, I feel like. Not really. But I have this issue where my don't stay in my skivvies. Like I need to wear boxer briefs to keep it packed away, because my normal boxers, it just does not stay in there. Like there's just no way. Like I've actually picked specific underwear if I'm staying at my in-laws and stuff. So that way, like in an emergency, I'm not just running around with, you know, my little Mick Johnson flopping around. It's like a legit issue, bro. Like, I mean, like I don't know why, but it just like doesn't stay in. And I just don't trust boxers anymore. But anywho, so she opens the door and it's our buddy. I'll just call him Nuts. But it's our buddy Nuts, and he's like, "Hey, house is on fire." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Well, did I hear that right?" And he's like, "Yeah, you got to pack up everything." And I was like, "I know there's fire extinguishers." He's like, "Okay, all right." And so like, part of me is like, "Is it actually on fire, or is it like, just the sauna is like hot and someone left it on and it's drying out.
And is it like, do we need to leave our stuff and get out, or do we need to like go step on like the whatever the
like step on the coals or whatever, right? Yeah, no, that's immediately what I was thinking too. And then I was like, oh, I don't hear any smoke detectors. But immediately after the door opened, I smelled like it honestly smelled like fresh cedar was burning.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird, which is why I was like, okay, that's got to be the sauna.
Mm-hmm.
'Twas not the sauna. And so I'm just gonna pull it up on my phone so you can see the videos. And we don't have to, it's not like anything crazy, Ken. Like, you're not missing out on like a crazy video of this Airbnb just being torched to the ground. But it was definitely on fire. And as we kind of realized that, I was like grabbing all of our stuff. I grabbed my gun and, packed it all up. And the other people were like really struggling. I think there's a lot of analysis paralysis or like deer in the headlight stuff. And Billie Jean and I had already like everything packed up, going out the front door, like boots on. I like threw on sweats and like a shirt and a flannel in like one motion. It was awesome. I was really proud of it. I was like, that was crazy. I got all 3 articles of clothing on in like no time. We go outside and I'm immediately grabbing my car and moving it because it was like in front of the house and it's a very narrow mountain drive. I'm like, okay, the fire department's going to be on their way. I can hear my buddy Nuts on the phone with them. But again, I'm like, I don't see any smoke, but I smell it. It was very strong. And then I asked Nuts, I'm like, what's going on? Like, where is it? And he's like, it's in the garage. I was like, did we try putting it out? Like, we have fire extinguishers. And he's like, I opened the door and just smoke came in, bro. And it's like, I could hear it. And I'm like, we got to get out. And I was like, oh shit. All right, deal. Like, I'm not going to argue. And I'm not about to like, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's up to me to save this Airbnb for someone I don't know who's probably like living in another state and doesn't even care if this place burns down. But anyways, so this was the what happened when the fire department got there and they opened up the garage.
Oh wow.
Like it was legit, like actually like a decent fire like burning in the garage and causing smoke.
That's gonna have some smoke damage in that house. Wow. So we've got garage doors open, smoke. That's a lot. That's a good bit of smoke coming out of there.
Yeah, dude.
Wow.
Like they went in with the hose and hosed it down.
So then what? What had happened?
So fire department's going in, hosing it all down. They're like, hey, you guys made the right call. And that made all of us feel like not like dorks and dweebs. And once they got it hosed down and started kicking around, we saw them kicking out like burnt black trash. And I was like, interesting. Because I remember the night before when we were cleaning up the wedding and stuff, be like, where do we take all this trash to? And someone's like, oh, in the garage. And they're like, I don't see any trash cans in the garage. And they're like, oh, they just say leave it in the garage. And they're like, all right. So everyone was just piling trash bags out there.
Smoking a doobie?
No, what happened, bro?
Some sparkler.
I did worry about that.
Sparkler.
I did worry, like, because there was a couple people who I know were smoking some joints, and I was like, but they were really responsible, and they weren't waving at anyone's face. I was like, shit, there's no way like their joint landed in the trash in the garage. They go outside to smoke it or something. And so that was my first concern, and then turned out what it was this couple from California.
Oh, yes.
Let me ask you, Pat, how many homes in Southern California you think have baseboard heaters, let alone baseboard heaters in a garage?
Yeah, I bet some do, but not a lot.
I bet zero.
In Southern California? Oh, yes. Yeah, in Southern California, yeah.
I bet 0 in San Diego. And so they just didn't know and think, and I understand, right? And the guy said, because they're like, yeah, the fire department was like, someone set these trash bags next to, on like top of the baseboard heater. And then the guy who was like, oh, that was totally me. And I was like, really? What's going on? Like, it's okay, bro. But like, why didn't you think to move? He's like, I don't know what that is. And he's like, also, I opened the door. There's already trash there. So I just threw it where that trash was.
Right.
I was like, that's a totally understandable thing to happen.
Surprising that it got hot enough to, like, I wouldn't set it on there intentionally too, but that's still surprising for a baseboard heater.
Yeah. I mean, I guess after like 8 hours, just sitting there, and there's probably like booze and stuff in the trash too.
It's something to combust, huh?
But yeah, so anyways, that's what it was. They put it out real quick. Airbnb apparently insures stuff up to like over $1 million.
Wow.
So they told JB's wife, she got the thing on Airbnb like, hey, here's a claim. You guys need to pay up for damages.
Oh, wow.
And the people who managed that Airbnb were like, don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Like, because the managers aren't the owners, right?
Right.
And the managers said, here's the issue.
Wait, did the owners come for the claim?
No, the owners live in Texas and don't give two shits.
It's a big Airbnb.
Big Airbnb said you got to pay up.
Okay.
The managers of the Airbnb said, don't do that. One, we just like, because they did a walkthrough when they got there, and they saw that next to the trash against the baseboard was propane tanks.
Oh, gosh.
That were like right next to the fire. And it was one of those things of like, I'm sure someone was like, well, these propane tanks won't explode if I put them next to the baseboard here. That's a zero chance.
Wow.
But if there's a fire caused by the baseboard heater, it's going to blow up those propane tanks.
That is wild.
Yeah, it is pretty bonkers. Because the bedroom, too, a master bedroom's just right above the garage there. And they were the first people to smell it.
Yeah.
They were like, it smells like our bedroom's on fire.
Oh, my goodness.
And so also they went through and there was like no smoke detectors. And like, I think like it was something crazy, like 30 of the smoke detector brackets were empty. And it was like, so that's totally also not on you. You know what I mean? Like there's no way we're gonna like you could take us to court and sue us over this.
And think about and the fact that like if this had started after you guys had checked out, and no one had been there,
it would have burnt down.
It would have burned down. Yeah.
So they were like, whatever you do, just do not pay like the claim to Airbnb. If you don't pay it, you'll get a ding by Airbnb. That's like a ding on your rental, and it'll be like, this person didn't pay for this much damages. But Airbnb's insures shit up that much, and so they got to pay for it, which sounds cool. That whole place is going to get a facelift.
Yeah, that's why the manager's like, don't. We needed a new paint job in here, like whatever.
But the neighbor of that dude, I can't remember his name, but he comes out on this porch of his massive Gigantopithecus house, right? His house that costs more money than you and I will make in our lifetime. And he's got his crazy thinning, like white hair, just going crazy in the morning. He's like, hey, how about you guys come on in? You can warm up in here.
Oh, nice.
And everyone's like, okay. And so then I go in this house, and his house is huge, just absolutely unreal how big it is. And he's just generous, kind guy, and his wife is helping all the girls make coffee and stuff. And we're just kind of watching the fire department do their thing from his house. I'm like, hey man, what do you do? I would just love to know what you do. And he started telling me, and he worked in just originally just selling property, but then he was doing it in Miami, and what he was doing was buying like strip malls. And at first he was brokering it, right? Like he just did a ton of brokerage of real estate, commercial, and then he was like, okay, I'm going to get into it. Yeah. And he got wrapped up with the cartel down in Miami.
Oh my god!
And he fled to Colorado. Like they gave him, they like kicked him out. Like they were like, you're leaving Miami. And he was like, I'm leaving Miami. So
oh my goodness.
He left Miami, came to Colorado, and started doing this like same thing, just getting in brokerage stuff here and then owning stuff. And then he now owns like the main street in Steamboat. And he owns the bowling alley and several of the other like, rental spaces for businesses and stuff that down there. And I'm like, I'm literally sitting in the house of like the Baron of Steamboat. You know what I mean? And like, I was like, this man's made it, bro. And he was like, it was really funny because he was very generous. He was very kind, opening his home to us, and like at letting everyone come in, and everyone took their shoes off and stuff, but like still they were just sitting around in his house.
Couch and stuff.
Yeah, and like playing with his dogs and drinking his coffee. And it's like fucking, 7 a.m. in the morning. But he was also just like, it was the most like, I don't know how to, I genuinely like the guy. I say this as a dude who's like, oh, you're cool. Like, I want to talk to you more. Also, you're textbook maniacal villain in a small town. Like, cause like he would just like laugh. And he's like,
Like he enjoyed watching the smoke come out of that garage.
I don't know, bro, but like there was just like I think he did because one, it was an Airbnb and it was like a pain in the ass. People would show up to his house and just walk in.
Right.
He said he was gone down looking at some stuff in Steamboat once, and he saw on his Ring doorbell a whole freaking catering company showed up to his house, brought in tables and food, started moving his furniture around.
Yeah, like, I guess it must be here.
Yeah. That's the and it's just, he's like, it sucks. He's like, I'm actually moving. We just finished building a house on like the lake over here. We'll move into it during the summer. But we're just going to turn this into an Airbnb too.
Yeah.
Because he's like, it's just a pain in the ass. But dude, the guy was like almost like, I mean, he was like the Big Lebowski. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah.
He was the Big Lebowski if the Big Lebowski was insanely rich. Like he just robes, slippers, you know, crazy old man hair. He had a full on like wine maroon looking room on the top of the house that had like 360 degree. It was like a rectangle, right? But you could see 360 degrees out through windows. And it had a TV for watching movies and DVDs and stuff. And it was just like plush maroon carpet and like a corduroy or in the whole room. Yeah. And you just sit on these plush, like large kind of bench couches, and there was just like blunts and weed everywhere. It's just like, oh, I'm sick. Like you just come up your wooden spiral staircase to this and just smoke weed every morning, staring out. You're like, see those lights over there? I own that shit. And that's literally what he was like, dude. He was so cool. I wish I could remember his name. I'll look it up. I can find him really easy because I've looked it up a couple times. But like he was just like, it was the way he was talking about stuff. He's like, you know the bowling alley? I was like, yeah. He's like, I fucking own it. And I was like, sick, bro. Where's Patrick Swayze? Is he gonna kick in your door and like kill your henchman? Like, like this is unreal. Here's where it gets crazier.
Oh wow.
I start telling him what I do for work, doing government consulting and all that, doing some DOD stuff. And he's like, oh, you should talk to, I can't remember her name either, but Marsha, whatever. It's his wife. And he's like, she was the lead counterterrorism agent for the FBI in New York. And she ran the New York office's counterterrorist FBI task force. And he's like, it's hilarious. We met on a dating app where you have to pay $3,000, but they pay for the whole date and set everything up and like food and all that and like where you're going to go and they drive you. He's like, but both of us paid for it just so we wouldn't have to like, you know, deal with like swiping, I guess. And he's like, so we just meet up on this date. And she's like, oh, I know you. Because he was like a dude that the FBI was like, we got to,
because he got involved with those people.
Yeah, he's linked to the cartel. And like, she's like, I ran from him. He's like, I was running for her all my life, only to end up in her arms. And I was like, this is fucking unreal, dude. This is crazy. And like, she was like, she thought it was funny and stuff, was laughing about it. And she was like, yeah, I had just retired and was going into consulting. And I was like, wow, it's crazy that we met. But like, he was never like a bad dude. You know what I mean? He was just a dude that was known to like be connected in some business with people who were in the cartel. And so it was just it was super funny. And now I don't know. I might reach out to them. They were like super nice and they were like, you should talk to us. We'd love to like, you know, hang out and like, yeah, sure. Help me get some connections.
No kidding.
I think she said she worked like for a long time doing consulting stuff for Lockheed, which was pretty sick. But so that was that trip, bro. And it was pretty sick. Like Airbnb weekend, cool wedding. But isn't it kind of like, isn't it wild?
It is wild. Super wild.
But then the other thing I was going to tell you, this is in no way a dig at the amazing Billie Jean. But today, the reason why I was eating my Firehouse subs in here with her and we kind of brought our dog last minute was we were taking our dog on its evening walk, taking Takani out. I go out the front door and I hear the door close behind me right after my beautiful bride had twisted the door handle lock to close.
From the inside.
From the inside.
Yeah.
And we step away from that, and she just stops and she looks at me. She's like, "Do you have your keys?" I'm like, "No, because you were behind me, and I figured you were gonna grab your keys before you locked the door." And she's like, "I don't have mine." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And of course, like our garage door, like door to the garage, we always lock so people can't just get in if they get in the garage.
Oh, you locked from the inside. Yeah. So yeah.
And the back screen door was locked, and I was like, "Oh," and I'll be damned if I pop it up my basement window that I just like framed and did his custom screen to keep the buggies out. So I'm like, okay. So we go take the dog for a walk while she's calling locksmiths, and she's getting really mad at herself, and she's like, "I'm so stupid." I'm like, one, don't talk about my wife that way or I'll have to beat you. And two, you know, it's okay, like this stuff happens, right? But like just buckle down. We can talk about mistakes that were made or whatever later, right? Like this is now, I'm not rubbing it in your face. I'm not blaming you. I know you said you're sorry. That's okay. It's a thing. This happens, but just focus here. We're a team. We need to resolve the problem. Call some locksmiths. And so she's calling around, and everyone's quoting us like $90 to $150 minimum. I'm like, oh geez, bro. I'll open my garage door, grab my drill, and drill out the lock myself, because that's what they're gonna do.
Right.
You know, rather than pick it, they're just gonna drill out your lock and then charge you money to change the lock to a new lock. So we get back to the house, and I'm starting to look up things, and I tried to do some like shimmies to get in, and I got so close, dude. I could tell I was getting close with like some old cards and Coke cans. I like cut out a Coke can and folded it and was shimmying it between the liner and the lock, but none of them worked. And then I was like, all right. And Billie Jean solved it. She said, "I think the back window is unlocked."
Like from the kitchen or like whatever.
Yeah. And we just have to pop the screen out and crawl through the window. I was like, all right, let's go check. She's like, "Oh, well, the screen's there, so I didn't want to pop it out without you." I was like, okay. So I grabbed a screwdriver, quick snipped out, and like that screen fortunately had the springs in it.
Oh yeah.
So got to pop it out without warping it at all. Slid the window open, hopped through, and we were good to go. Only thing is, didn't have time to make dinner. Yeah. So we rushed to Firehouse Subs and ate that. But it was just classic, like, you know, stuff happens and it's okay. And it's funny, and like you just got to kind of deal with the problem, and then you can assess it. And it was beautiful. She came to me and hugged me, and she said, "I'm sorry that I was, you know, did something so silly and dumb." I could tell her eyes were glassy and red from like stress and being upset. I'm like, no excuses or anything like that. Like, it's fine. It's okay. You just cannot beat yourself up. You cannot go into paralysis and blame game when there's a problem that still needs to be solved. And I was like, we're a team. We solve this stuff together. It's not going to help if I yell at you. It's not going to help if you beat yourself up. Right? And she's like, okay. And, you know, it was really good. It was great. And now we have, for all the kin to know, I have a key hidden somewhere in my garage.
I was about to say
but also it's booby trapped.
Oh yeah.
And you, all of the traps will kill you. So you better be sure you find the right key the first time. But now we have a key in the garage hidden away, so that way we can get the code in and grab the key, and then, you know, get inside if that ever happens again. Yep.
Oh yeah. It's so frustrating when that stuff happens. I did that once. This reminds me of a story. I'd forgotten about this, where I was in early college, like 19 years old, working for a moving company. We were in they had these like company Priuses that we would drive a crew in sometimes to meet the big truck if we couldn't all fit in the big truck. And
wow, nothing more like wussy than like the big truck and then like the rest of the homies pulling up in the Priuses.
Yep, in the Priuses. And all the Priuses were taken that day. So I just volunteered to take my car. So we all went in my car, and we're running through, and we had to, when we got done with our job, a very common thing for movers is to have a court date. So, because, you know, they're just like mover. By the way, a mover, if you've got like you've got a little bit of a history and you can't find a job, it pays good. A mover is not like a super high paying job, but it is like it's the highest paying job for an unemployable person.
Smoke break.
Smoke break.
Hey, Ken, it's Mick, and I've got something important to talk about. We all hope we never find ourselves in a self-defense situation, but life's unpredictable. Enter the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer, an actual credible law firm you could put on retainer for your self-defense needs. For just $35 a month, you get national coverage in all 50 states for criminal and civil legal representation in self-defense situations, complete with a 24/7, 365 toll-free emergency line. That's real legal support when you need it most. What's in the package? Bail bonds, scene cleanup, firearm replacement, even mental health counseling. Plus, zero fees for a laundry list of defense-related costs like expert witnesses. So support the show and get yourself some peace of mind. Click the link in our show notes or visit our sponsors page to sign up for the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer.
Hey folks, Pat here. If you're like Mick and I, you're a fan of classic tales like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, The Three-Body Problem, and Steinbeck's East of Eden. With Audible, you can dive into these epic stories anytime, anywhere. Sign up for a free month, and your first audiobook is on the house. To start your free trial and support our show, click the link in the show notes or swing by the sponsors page on our website.
Want an awesome website for your podcast? Check out Podpage. We use it for the Mick and Pat show, and it's a game changer. Set it up in minutes, no coding needed. Support the show by using our link to get started. Your podcast deserves a home as great as ours. Podpage, the one-stop solution. Yeah, it's the highest paying job for someone with no skills.
Right.
Like unskilled labor that can just like, because you learn all the skills the first day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you learn how to do it and you can get good at it. But it's one of the things. So there's lots of guys where, lots of guys have a previous criminal history, whatever. So lots of guys have court dates and things going on and all this stuff and drama. And so, of course, like one guy needs cigarettes and one guy has a court date. So what takes precedent is
cigarettes.
So on our way back from the job, we pull over at the local gas station, run in to grab some cigarettes, and run back out to the car. And what have I done?
Locked the keys in
the car.
With it running still?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't running at least. But so now we've got like, I'm young. I've got these kind of scary dudes. And now it's all my fault that he's not going to get to his court date on time.
Yeah. He's like, I'm going to jail because this mother.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, it's not my fault that
you're the one that needed cigarettes.
Yeah. And it's not my fault that you have a court date.
Yeah, exactly.
So, right. Or like, so anyway, so I mean, one guy's freaking out, another guy's freaking out. And one guy just starts like wrenching on my door, like getting his fingers on it. He's like pulling on the panel, like almost bending my door,
Bro,
like freaking out.
That is
and all this stuff.
no.
I'm like, oh my gosh. So then here's when it's good to have a history. One of the other guys just goes around the corner. He grabs one of those, it's like a stick in the ground street sign.
Yep.
For some whatever. And he just grabs it, pulls the poster off of it, flings it, bends the wires back and forth twice and gets two pieces of metal out of it, bends one way, bends one the other way. And he's like, all right, pull that back. And so they pull back the door and he just jimmies it down there and whoosh, hits the unlock button. We're back in action. Yep. And it's like, that wasn't the first time he'd done that before, you know?
That's incredible, dude.
And so so now because I hate locking keys and stuff. I've got contingencies. I got hidden keys.
It sucks, dude. It sucks so much.
That's what I do love the code lock. Like that.
Do you really?
Like that we have on the shop doors and stuff. Like having a code lock, I like. Might not be the best thing for your personal house. I don't know, but I do like the code lock. And even if you have the code lock, you still gotta have the hidden key. Like in my truck, I have a whole little like kit for getting into cars and into doors and stuff that in case you need to, because it comes in handy.
Well, dude, I'll call you next time because I was like, oh, dude, the only other guy I know with a lockpicking kit is so far away.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's a very valid and relevant skill to have, right? And it always comes in super handy, and it's always baller when you're the dude who knows how to do that, right? Like, how many times in college does girls lock her keys in her car or whatever, and you're the dude that gets to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, dude, that's sick. Well, Anyways.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff happened.
It was a little bit, yeah, that's a little bit wild.
I don't think the United Health CEO was assassinated. I don't think he was dead last time we were on the podcast.
I don't think so either.
So now he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just pretty crazy. This guy who is a suspect, I'm not saying he did it, but the suspect is essentially this gentleman named Luigi. How do you pronounce the last name?
It is Mangione.
Mangione. So what do we know about this guy, Pat? What can you what's the deets that you can give me?
I mean, so far as I know, he's pretty young. He's and he looks just like a guy. He looks like a guy who should be just finishing up college or on like at a frat party, maybe, but like a high end, like not a frat party, but at a fraternity gathering, you know?
Yeah.
And
well, let me say this.
Yeah.
I can tell you how, like, he is a guy who has gone to college.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy apparently has a PhD. And hey, Pat, you better be careful.
Yeah.
Because he's a data engineer.
Oh, my God.
So you better watch out, bro. Because I could, at any moment now, all right?
Just decide.
Be careful of how you treat the data engineers is all I'm saying.
No kidding. They spend too much time in their basement.
Okay. That's him. This guy's fucking dead. No, but yeah, he apparently got a PhD data engineer. And he also, I guess, from what I understand, comes from a pretty wealthy family. He went to an Ivy League school. I think he was like, what is it? What's the top one for your college when you're graduating?
Valedictorian, yeah.
Yeah, he was valedictorian. Just like all this stuff that is like, wow, this is just not actually at all who plans out a very thorough, methodical hit.
It's not the pizza-faced, greasy-haired,
savage,
long Reddit feed, wears lots of black clothing, was always kind of the outsider.
Yep.
That, hey, I'm profiling here, but that person
we all know
who,
yeah,
has kind of always been
school shooter type.
Yeah. On the edge, kind of weird, whatever.
Trump assassination type.
Exactly. And this guy, he would appear to have it all going for him.
Yeah.
Good college, good looks, from a good family. He was
everyone too, like all of his friends have come out saying like, this is my best friend. Like, I love him. He's so like great and supportive. Like, I can't believe that like this is him and that he did this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are absolutely gobsmacked that this dude did it, or is the suspect in the case of doing it. Because I really don't want to say he did it until like it's actually come out without a kangaroo court that, okay, jury finds him guilty. But anyways, all that said,
here's a real quick thing.
Sure,
he moved to Honolulu, Hawaii, where he had a remote job working in a living space where he led book clubs, enjoyed going on hikes and doing yoga. So that's kind of a little more of the picture, right?
Can you imagine what that must be like?
So, yeah, I mean, it's like you would think maybe not disgruntled. He did not adopt the aloha spirit while he was there, I can see. But yeah.
Oh, man. Did you see that he, did you read his review for Ted Kaczynski's memoir?
I didn't read his review. I did read like one brief thing where he talked about like, because this guy, they found a notebook of his stuff and his writings in it. And the only thing I read about it was that he was like, I'm not going to use a bomb because I could hurt innocent people.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I knew about.
Well, he left a very favorable 4 out of 5 stars review of the Ted Kaczynski's, what's that called? Not memoir. Manifesto. And dude, it's like, I mean, I'll pull it up, but it's pretty much like, what other options do we have when it the elites won't let you speak? What is the only other option for the oppressed and unheard outside of violence? You know, and it's just like one of those stuff of like, okay, like, damn, this guy's like, that's like that will get you flagged real quick, you know? So.
And I think I have it here if you're having trouble.
Oh yeah, read it, bro.
I think it's about a paragraph long, his response. It says, it's easy. He said, it's easy to quickly and thoughtlessly write this off as the manifesto of a lunatic in order to avoid facing some of the uncomfortable problems it identifies. But it's simply impossible to ignore what word is this? My eyes are not working. I'm not a PhD, bro. How prescient. Prescient.
You guys, all right. Literate.
Anyways.
I bet Ted Kaczynski used that.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, that's a good word.
I'm looking it up, people. We got to learn real quick. Here we go. It is having or showing knowledge of events before they take place. Oh, prescient. Okay.
Oh, prescient? I know that word. You just pronounced it wrong.
I just was being an idiot.
I'm just kidding.
All right. Many of his predictions, whatever. But it's simply impossible to ignore how prescient many of his predictions about modern society have turned out. And then he wrote in a book review in January, he was a violent individual, rightfully imprisoned, who maimed innocent people. While these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite, however, they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary. So I don't know if that was the stuff that you had read. Did you read some other stuff? Okay.
That was it.
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty crazy though, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll say this, like you can, we're still kind of digging into the beginning story before we start reviewing kind of what our thoughts on it are. But in this part about, with Unabomber and reading manifestos and things. So the guy's 26 years old, kind of in a pretty prime age of, developing who you are, what you believe about the world, and being impressionable still, even though, you're a man. You can get in kind of deep into like these thoughts and these things, and you can read some Karl Marx, you can read some Unabomber, you can read some Mein Kampf, and you can come out with starting to think some of this kind of makes sense, some of this sounds good, and but it's not. And so you can see where there's things and parts of it and little tiny truths or things that they're pointing out or things that they're upset with that do resonate with you, but it's not completely informed, and so eventually you can end up in a twisted place. That being said, so after Luigi allegedly killed the CEO, there has been a huge wave, I would say, of support for his actions and what he did.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's almost like ubiquitous among like essentially the secular people in America right now to be super pro, like don't lock him up, free him, let him out. You know what I mean? It's I have not seen this kind of support for a criminal since George Floyd, bro. Like, don't get me wrong, right? Like that was like last time a dude who was a criminal and people lost their minds for it, right? And even then, there's still more divisiveness over George Floyd, and I don't think there's that much divisiveness over what Luigi did. Like, no, apparently,
right, and people aren't rioting and stuff, and it's little, little apples to oranges there, but it is like this thing of where you have people really identifying with the arrested person, and the offender. So you have, and I'd say I haven't seen a ton of like open outward support. I've seen a couple man on the street interviews where people are like, like the system's screwed up. That guy might have had, there maybe needs things to be like, addressed, and like, you can see where this guy's coming from. Then if you go into the internet, comments and stuff, that's where you really get the savagery and the people who are like, free Luigi, we're on his side,
I've seen a lot of people.
They deserved this.
I've seen a lot of people online, like a lot of people, I guess, people online and their own account sign, like not behind a anonymous username or profile pic. Be like, yeah, no, 100%. Like we should do it more. And I've seen people like journalists and stuff like saying it was great, and it was a good, no, maybe not great, but that was a good thing. And it should, and like, who's surprised that, like, no one's surprised that this happened. That Taylor Lorenz journalist from Vox, who was a very controversial, very far left journalist, was like, this is the voice of the people. And Vox was like, hey, we're run by billionaires. So you are fired. You know what I mean? And it's like,
right.
It's one of those things of, I think a lot of people who feel a lot of emotion and a lot of frustration, especially now that there is a billionaire businessman about to run the country that they aren't very happy about, that they didn't vote for and stuff. I think there's a lot of like anger that wants to get channeled. You know what I mean? And I empathize with the feeling of like a lack of representation. I empathize with the frustration and how it can be bottled, and it can definitely be it can manifest and then be expelled in a direction inappropriately and probably at the wrong thing. Now, I'm just going to say this, Pat. Freaking buckle up, bro. Here it is. I'm not filtering at all.
All right. Let's hear it.
I think the United Health CEO was a very, very bad man. I am not convinced that Luigi, what's his name? Far more morally, absolutely debauched individual. Just from the things I know that he's been recorded saying, his philosophy and view of people and the sick and elderly and the, children with terminal illnesses, his view of them is essentially free money because they're paying you they're paying you today for something you'll never give them, and they'll be gone tomorrow. And all that said, I understand why whoever did what they did took that action. I don't condone it.
Right. Like you could see how
I'm not going to condone
how they
murder.
arrived to that conclusion. Yeah. You can see how someone could get there.
Yeah. Especially when you see like his family history of like his grandmother and grandfather both died shortly after one another, waiting on healthcare denials for their illnesses. And that he himself, apparently there was x-rays from which this is wrong. This stuff shouldn't be released, right? Someone released stuff of his own medical history and how he apparently had a pretty severe like spinal surgery that had some pins in it. And
this is a Reddit account that's assumed to be, it came from an anonymous Reddit account that was assumed to be his, because it matched very closely with some texts he'd sent friends and things like that and stuff.
And all that said, it's just like, dude, Pat, you've experienced family illnesses. So have I. But like you've seen it firsthand, like, and like thought, your loved ones might die from like from illnesses and stuff. Can you imagine if the treatment that would save their life or like keep them alive was just denied by insurance, and then like the hospital wasn't allowed to provide them that treatment? Otherwise the hospital could be like, facing some serious legal consequences and being sued, and no one's going to pay for it. Right. Like it wasn't too long ago that your father was on his deathbed. Can you imagine what it would have been like if he died because he didn't get the treatment he needed, and it was his insurance company that said, nah, depose, deny.
Right. Yeah. No, I'll say that that situation where, that particular situation you're bringing up is one where I could identify with Luigi's feelings the most, and not towards hospital administrators and their rules and things and this stuff, because care was denied multiple times and things like that. And
really?
Yeah. So that's why it got so bad.
I can relate too. My mom, from her traumatic brain injury, from a car accident that she wasn't at fault for. It was a young person driving while texting that was at fault, and that person filed bankruptcy, and the insurance essentially said we're not paying anymore. And the state, it was years of court case litigation while my mom literally had a brain injury that honestly erased the woman I knew as a child. Like the woman that she is today is a wonderful woman and I love her and she is my mother, but she is not the same person she was then. Like behaviorally and like personality wise, there's a difference. And for like a good year there, I really thought like my mom may never entirely come back while she was in constant legal litigation. Lawyers just hoping to get a part of the, like they were like, yeah, we're working for this and like you don't have to pay us now, but we're taking whatever this settlement ends up being. And like pretty much the payout that she got for that was basically nothing after the legal fees and stuff, the compensation for it. And the insurance did everything they possibly could to not have to pay and cover her, even though the other girl was found at fault and stuff. And it was just one of those things where I was like, wow, dude, if my mom literally does not get the medical care that is deserved to her for something that is not in any way, shape, or form her fault, I could see myself burning shit to the ground.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was one of those things where I was so boiled over angry.
And I think that's why so many people are resonating with this guy. And you know, like we said, not condoning his actions, what he did, but what we're seeing.
I'm not going to condone murder, but I also, I'm not going to. Are you going to stop him from shooting that CEO? Like, are you going to step in front of that CEO and save his life?
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is a great example of like it's a you have an ethical moral dilemma, but do you? That's the hard part about this, or one way or the other, right? Because you have an ethical moral dilemma on both sides with the healthcare system, the CEO's choices, him as a human, this other guy's a human. But what I think what I've seen, even more so than like, there's people on the internet dropping comments of you know,
kill them all, eat all the rich,
all that sort of stuff. But what I've seen more than that is people sharing like the stories me and you just shared. Lots of people saying, my mom would still be here if, they got the treatment that they needed, or, they were denied this and now it's chronic pain or a lifelong injury that cannot be fixed, like these sorts of things. And so that I've seen a lot more of those comments. And so that's why I think a lot of people are not necessarily condoning, like choosing one side or the other. They are addressing the larger issue, which is, because if you take this on an individual basis, you have a dude shot another dude. That's not okay. Especially seeing as like, yes, this guy's CEO in power, like he's not the direct individual to his, like, that's not like the person you blame for your back pain in this case. But at the same time, then you have a CEO who's making crazy amounts of money, more than anybody needs, and profiting from people's suffering, profiting from people's pain, and really not delivering what they say they're going to deliver. And so you take this situation, blow it up to the large scale, which is a healthcare system that does not work as it stands. It does not stand currently. And this, you could probably take a whole year-long college course on why our healthcare system is the way it is, and fully subsidized government healthcare isn't necessarily the way, but also at the same time, fully privatized isn't the way. But I'll say this, a mix of the two is for sure not the way, because ever since we've, basically since Obamacare, certain things like that have gone into place, that's when the private area really went off the rails.
Oh yeah, dude, everyone thought Obamacare was going to annihilate the private area, like the private insurance and medical. Bro, dude, the Obamacare is what freaking blew us off the rails.
It messed it up so bad. And so the fact that it's not one way or the other, I think is a very basic analysis of saying why it doesn't work. But there's something not working, and people are fed up with it. People want care. People, want their health. And especially, if you are, if you are paying for or have an insurance that's quote unquote covering you, then it really is frustrating when you, even on the smallest scale, which would be you have insurance, you go to the doctor when you need something. They do, classic thing where you go in and they do like the tiniest thing. They pull a splinter out of your finger and you just needed help. And then you get a bill for $550.
Yep. But
you were covered on it. Like you have insurance. So why is this way? And so that's a very small.
Yeah, your deductible, your deductible is $4,000 and they're out of network.
Exactly. This whole game that it is.
So so you're stealing money on my paycheck and I get no benefit.
And so starting from you're saying this service was worth that much money, which is also part of the problem. So you're saying this service was worth X amount of money, which is a little loco.
$15 ibuprofens.
Yeah. And then you're saying you're not going to cover it when I pay you to cover it. It's like, so when it breaks down that far, it's just very disheartening, very discouraging, makes people wonder why they even have it, and it puts people in a spot where they are unhappy.
Oh yeah. That was the one thing I was reading, one of the great stories, and that's what I've been doing so much time is honestly just reading the stories of people who are like, why I don't care? Because this is my experience. Why I don't care? Because this is the experience of my wife, my children. And one of them was just like a funny one. And it was like, the day I stopped thinking that, American health insurance had any validity was a dentist assistant asked how I was feeling. I said, oh yeah, my mouth kind of hurts, after whatever root canal they had or whatever. And the nurse said, oh, well, do you want an ibuprofen? And he was like, sure. She left and came back with one ibuprofen in a cup, gave it to him. He took it. Then he looked. It was $25 on his bill.
Yeah.
And he's like, I thought she meant she was just grabbing it out of her purse.
Right.
$25 for one ibuprofen pill?
Right.
Okay.
When already $25 for the whole bottle is
ludicrous.
Yeah, much less one pill.
Yeah, and so
and hey, $1. If you charged $1, you'd still profit. And people wouldn't be as upset.
Yeah.
They'd say,
It's an unfortunate thing, but true. Like the American healthcare system is jacked as hell, and it really didn't used to be though. Like that's the thing too. Is like the American healthcare system didn't used to be broken. It was actually a very and I'm saying this as someone who I don't think was alive to experience this. But there was a point in time where like the free market capitalism of healthcare insurance was a very competitive industry that was something that was a cost evaluator for the everyday working person. And what I mean by the cost evaluator was like you evaluate based on your income and your expectation of medical need if you even needed insurance. Because it was still relatively normal to pay the doctor out of your own pocket, to pay a hospital out of your own pocket.
Right.
And like, it wasn't even something you had to do a freaking payment plan for. But it was like, okay, well, we did just have, my wife does have a pre-existing condition. She is pregnant. And I do know one of my children, has a, physical condition or mental condition that like we're going into. So it does make sense for me to get health insurance, but it doesn't make for Joe Schmo to be paying that money
because he could pay for it if he needed to.
And he doesn't go to his family just doesn't go to the hospital as much.
Right.
And that was that was the majority of the lived experience was like, you just evaluate based on that and you don't do it. And if you needed it, you could just pull it out of savings. Right. And then there was this individual who started going around purchasing health insurance companies and started like also purchasing hospitals and essentially setting it up so that way you could charge, ludicrous expenses to these insurance companies for bills because one, they're going to be litigated to all hell. And what you get paid out of them is going to be a settlement. And of course, well, how do you get a higher settlement? Well, you have a much more ludicrous higher first number on the bill. So it gets settled down to and agreed upon and negotiated down to what it is. And so all that said, it also essentially got monopolized into a single, essentially like cartel of health insurance companies. Right. That's why there's only 4 or 5 big ones nowadays is because they all got essentially purchased up and wrapped up into one entity. And that entity now practices in every single town in every single state. And also, by the way, they're partnered with the federal government. And not only do they insure most of the government's employees, but they also are like the healthcare company that is paying your Medicare. A lot of people don't know that, but like Medicare, when you retire, you switch from like Medicare that is like, if you were to go on Medicare before reaching the age of 65, you're going on it because of disability.
Right.
And that's paid out of like Medicare A or B. Medicare C is what people get switched over to when they just retire and they're no longer underneath a company's insurance. Medicare C is not paid by the federal government. Medicare C is paid, like the government pays private insurance to run the claims and checks on Medicare C for you and pay out and oversee the billing and process. And that's what you're part of, like your Medicare tax out of your paycheck goes to. And it's actually paying just these private companies to do it. It's not even a federal institution anymore.
Right.
They're so deeply wrapped, entwined into the fabric of our economy and our government now that it's like, we literally have to tear it out by the roots.
And here's the thing too, as a business owner too, anytime I hear the possibility for a private company to do something the government needs to do, that's dollar bill signs, right? So, and that's how it is. Anything that the government needs, whether it's fix a fence or all the way over to, have a consultant to build a missile or have somebody figure out your healthcare.
Yeah.
Now that there's another middleman and they got to privatize it, that's where it very easily and quickly goes, oh, we can charge them whatever,
Yep.
and that is a sentiment that I don't know, everybody knows, everybody has, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, if you talk, he's got all the government contracts. Oh, well, he's doing good, right? That's whatever that might be. And so because there's some big pot and pool of money that everybody's been paying into. And so someone wants to suck out of it. And so, there's less checks and balances in there. And it's not the classic issues too, is whoever the person on the government side of things, it's not their money.
Nope.
Right. And so it's just like, oh, yeah, here it is, and sending it out, right? So,
and it's not like they're going to be fired if they mismanage it or if they mispay.
Right, and that's
someone's like, why the hell are you paying them $60 million?
Yeah.
When like we should be paying them $2 million.
Yeah.
A year for like whatever they're doing, right? And it's just like, oh, $60 million sounded fine to me.
Exactly, and that's on that's a whole nother bigger conversation of like the whole of the of the system. But this healthcare system is a big piece of the puzzle and the pie on it, especially when it comes to how it affects individuals. Lockheed Martin selling some missile for, $500K. All right. That's doesn't necessarily involve me or you day to day in our life or in an average person's life. But when it comes to healthcare systems, that affects all of us. We all have either ourselves or someone we know or love who's, needs medical help and medical attention. And so, and it's one of those things where there's only a handful of things that people will pay money for. If you were so strapped for cash and you just couldn't make it happen, you're not going to have a cell phone. You're not going to have a new TV or whatever. You're not going to, have a car or whatever, all these kind of goods and services types things. You're not going to call a plumber. You're going to figure it out. If you have stage 4 cancer, you're going to do it. Right. And so that's where it gets people by the short hairs, where they have no other choice. They have no other. And because it has been monopolized, you can't go down the street. You can't go, I'm going to the next hardware store, see if they sell these nails for cheaper. It's just like, nope, that's what it is. That's also because there also are some government basically procedures that have got involved too, where they say this should cost X amount. And typically those are exorbitant costs.
Oh yeah. Yep. Well, let me ask you this, Pat. Are you a single payer healthcare idea?
Sorry, so for what?
So single pay healthcare is like socialist healthcare, right?
Right.
Everyone,
Okay. Right.
Everyone pays, and you know, there is no such thing as health insurance companies anymore.
I think that in a perfect world, that sounds great. Also, I think that, and when we've talked about this before on here too, it's like, that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, that would work great if an EpiPen cost $25 instead of $650, or if this procedure cost $30,000 instead of $600,000, and then it would be sustainable for the people paying in. And so the privatized market has to be corrected before a socialized system can ever function under it. Because like the issue I was just saying with like government contracts would be, unless you would have to have every single medical company, every single hospital, every single doctor, all the way down, the whole thing would have to be government employees. And we know by ever visiting the DMV, the service might not be that good at that point.
Nope.
Right? So you do have to, I believe, have a competitive private sector providing service, but how do you get people what they need, keep that competition, and not have it where then the private companies can just charge the government whatever they want for those services at exorbitant costs. So I think that it's not a horrible system to have help for people who need it through the government and to have private healthcare. I think both can exist, but they can't be so commingled. You know, as we've been talking about, that's the problem that's happening. Is there's also a big word that's the main issue here too, and a lot of it, which roots back to this CEO guy maybe, and I'm using him as an example of the whole system, which would be the word greed, right? And so it's like, if you could cut greed out of the deal, and if you could put doctors and nurses in charge instead of MBAs and CEOs, I think that could fix the problem pretty fast too. People who, you know, go into $300,000 of debt to help people. Yes, they're going to make good money, but they go into, they work night shifts. They study their butts off to help people. There is like an earnest piece of those folks, and they're not the administrators, they're not the ones making the decisions. They're not the ones making the profit necessarily. There are private practices, whatever, but like, you know, that's the big issue with our healthcare system is it's began to be run by people who aren't in the business of care. They're in the business of business. And so, you know, I don't have a perfect answer for it. And besides the fact of, you know, saying, yeah, in a perfect world, it'd be great if we all paid into the pot and then everybody got great care. But short of fixing other big issues first, that's never going to work.
Yeah. I will. So I also think in a perfect world, yeah, it'd be great if the U.S. could actually have single payer or universal healthcare, right? Which I just don't think it's actually a reality. Like if you do the math, it's not a reality at all. It would bankrupt the U.S. And so I think the real solution is for a country with our population size is flat rate. Or I've heard other people say like single rate, but flat rate health insurance that essentially still allows there to be a private commercial, like capitalistic industry, right? But the rate is essentially capped. Like you cannot charge more than this, right? Like this is like this is what everybody pays when they get health insurance, no matter which company they sign up for and stuff. So in order to have that, you need to have in order to get their business, you need to offer more competitive packages. And I've heard a lot of people kind of talk about this of like, you know, flat rate, you know, could be essentially the way to bring everything and rein everything back into a realistic budget, right? And it is kind of like the reason in a lot of ways, like we see like certain prices and rates like that just exist regardless of, you know, like the market condition, right? Like there is a reason your bread can't be sold for X amount of dollars at the grocery store, right? There's like actual price control on a lot of our quote unquote free capital market. And it's, it does get into that part of like, should the government have the right to do that? If you're really a capitalist, what do you think? And I think it's, we see it work on a pretty small scale. Like if you look at a lot of the Christian health insurance companies, a lot of the Christian health insurance is like, it's just a flat rate. Everybody pays this each month. And when you need to use it, you use it. Right. And it works really well for the most part. Like a lot of these places, a lot of these smaller, like health insurance, medical coverage, flat rate companies, and groups seem to be having a lot of success in the US with how they're working on it, and everyone pays the same price. Because it honestly, like, yes, you're gonna have bad actors who are like, I want to take advantage of it, but they're gonna do that with single payer too. And they're doing it right now on Medicare. Right. You know what I mean? And it's like one of those things of like, I think flat rate makes sense because on a grand scheme of things, people don't want to take advantage of it and spend more time in the hospital. Yeah. And of course there's things that are like not covered by flat rate healthcare. Like flat rate doesn't cover cosmetic surgery. Like you don't just get to sign up for like this Christian healthcare network and then get your plastic surgery on your boobs and lip filler and your eyebrows done. Right. Like it that is not going to cover it. Right. I'm also a big fan of HSAs. And I think it'd be almost, I don't know. I think it'd be much more advantageous to every American to go and open up an HSA. Like you can open up an HSA outside of your health insurance. Right. It's just that a lot of health insurances come with a packaged HSA plan, and therefore you can then, it's a lot easier to just have it directly coming out of your paycheck. But like a lot of people don't realize you could just be like, hey, I'm an individual. You run HSAs. I would like to open an HSA. And they're like, okay, sick. It's outside of your healthcare coverage. So just, yeah, I mean, it really doesn't mean anything at all. They're just like, just don't forget about it. Like when it comes to your bill, because you have to pay into it monthly. Right. Yeah. But like, I just don't understand why more people don't use HSA. Because I mean, that's what I do. And for everything I got to pay for out of pocket, I almost always have $2,000 in that HSA. And anytime it goes over $2,000, it automatically invests. Oh yeah. And then anytime I like buy new glasses with it or a prescription, it doesn't invest anymore until it gets back to like at least $2,000 in the account. Right. And that's like a very safe feeling. You know what I mean? For sure. So, and I think a quick breakdown on like the flat rate. I was looking at this is healthcare cost in 2022 was $4.5 trillion, which equates to basically $13,500 per person. Now divide that out for a year, $1,000 a month. You say $13,500 per person? Yeah. So about $13,000 in a person each year. Yep. That's unreal, dude. Yep. That's crazy. But so then it's like, all right, $1,000 a month, flat rate, maybe not the end of the world, but what if you're a family of 5? And now it's $67,000 a year. So, but also to take it back to like, let's take the EpiPen example. Cause I was looking like in Australia or whatever. And granted, this maybe isn't perfect math because they have it subsidized. So they might be paying part of it and then the person, but like, if you can get, EpiPen for $35. Yep. Here you get it for $650. That's 5%. Right? Yeah. It's 5.3%. So if you take that same $13,000 a year and, you go 5 and you can, you actually, if you shrunk the cost correctly where you're down to 800, it's $800 per person per year. That's crazy, dude. Okay. Now you have something you can work with. And granted, I'm using some extremes here. I'm not getting into the fact that like, what about every individual who works in the healthcare care world? Like they're not going to make, like, how are they going to make money right off of that? I don't know. But Truth be told, I think we need to pay doctors and nurses good money. I think nurses should be making six figures. If they're a good nurse, they're not a lazy ass nurse. I think they should be making six figures. Just the same way I feel about like, you know, great firefighters, great police officers, like out there serving the community, not being pieces of crap. Like, I genuinely think they deserve to be paid well because they are serving and giving up a lot. I don't think doctors should be making $1 million a year. Like when there does come a point where like doctors are making some kind of, you know, they're making so much money that it's like, who are you treating?
Right.
Is that, are you still an ethical practitioner, or are you only treating certain patients and people to like make a profit, and are you essentially just a doctor for hire for those who can afford you, and you're denying your medical ability and proficiency to others? You know what I mean? And it's just, it's like one of those things that like I started getting real like, wait a second. I don't like the idea of private cops. I don't like the idea of cops making $1 million a year, because that means they're only going to be protecting the person who pays their checks. You know what I mean? It's like, it gets like pretty twisted and sus the more it gets up there. So all that said, I do think we can pay these people well.
Right.
I do think you can pay them for the value they contribute to society and all that. Because they are, at the end of the day, saving lives and hopefully doing it right and improving lives. Also, though, like there is a line in the sand of like, what is corruption, I think, you know, and I do think flat rate would seriously help remove that financial kind of corruption and bias that is kind of permeated through healthcare and coverage. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you know how much you can contribute legally to an HSA every year before the IRS punishes you?
I have no idea.
So you said right now, if we evened it out across all Americans, it'd be $13,500 per person. As an individual, right now in 2024, you can contribute up to $3,500 a year to your HSA before it maxes out and the IRS would punish you for over contributions, and you get fines.
You can't even really cover. You can cover like 10% of your.
If your spouse and you are both under it, you could contribute up to $8,000.
So it's like
it's not even half of of half of what you two are technically
would
paying.
Contribute to the pot.
Yeah.
Right?
Isn't that crazy?
Oh yeah.
It's a game. It's a club, and you ain't in it.
Oh yeah, and that's where I think a couple things that could really take care of this. Like, I'm interested in like the what old Bobby Kennedy's going to do, make all the fat kids healthy again.
I think Bobby Kennedy's going to freaking gut some stuff.
And so
it's also crazy too that not to keep cutting you off, but like it's unreal to me that like we're seeing Bernie coming out to offering like help improve the healthcare system. With like not an entire socialist makeover of it, but of a like proposed possible flat rate plan as well, of just like, hey, I see Trump building, you know, the freaking Avengers over here.
Exactly.
Like I could, like, I'm old. It's not about making money now. I really don't think Bernie's in it for the money. I think Bernie, don't get me wrong, I'm sure he'd be happy to make some money. But like, I think for him, it's the same thing like Robert Kennedy said. Robert Kennedy said, you know, this is not about being rich. I'm already a wealthy man. I only have 10 good years left. This is about doing what I can finally with those last 10 years before it's too late. And I think Bernie's even more like, I got 5. I better make them count. And I think this is an opportunity to make them count, you know?
And I think these kind of, if the reaches across the aisle can keep happening, that's what we need, obviously, in a huge, huge way. And so, to see, like, we did a whole podcast on kind of healthcare crisis, or not the health crisis that like that Bobby Kennedy was addressing, and like, man, like there should just be that 4 point whatever trillion dollars of healthcare that we needed. That's inflated, and like because everybody's getting charged too much, but also like we just shouldn't be needing that much healthcare. Right.
No kidding. Right? Like if Americans were as healthy as Australians.
Right. Like we wouldn't.
Unreal.
We wouldn't need all this, all this healthcare. So that's a huge piece of it that I would like to see is like, hey, what if we do actually start to, get healthy in those ways? And I guess we'll just pay for it on the other end, where all of our food's just going to cost so much money, because if they have to follow the guidelines, then it's going to be like a lot. It's going to be like $40 for a bag of Doritos for them to like do it healthily.
But that's the thing is like, you won't buy Doritos anymore. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's true. But like kind of like all foods too.
Also, Doritos don't cost $40 in England.
That's true.
You
that's
know
true.
what I mean? Or in like Germany. Like,
that's a good point.
The chips there are still $3.
That is true. That's a good point. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do, see if we actually get anything happen there. And then also just with, as people are excited about, kind of reformatting, some of our government agencies and different things, like hopefully things like this and events like this that we talked about, where people are really bringing their frustration with the healthcare to, up and, to the elites. Hopefully they'll listen. Hopefully they'll make a difference. Hopefully they'll make some changes. We'll see about all that. But
well, didn't you see the new interim CEO said, like, we are going to continue to model our history of reviewing and denying like inaccurate, or unrealistic requests.
He just came out being like,
he just doubled down on it. He's like,
and honestly,
I'm going to cut the head off. Yeah. Replace it.
I would. It's hard. It is hard too, because if I was in his position, I would have the thing of like,
we don't negotiate with terrorists.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
We draw a heel once. They're just going to continue doing it.
Yeah, that's I was about to say that exact phrase. Like, not negotiating with terrorists. Like, we're coming in here, we're doing what we're doing, and it is a super complex system. Who knows how it can all get worked out? And
here's my thing though, man. I don't think it matters if that's their philosophy. Because I do think like this, honestly, like this is a Robin Hood moment. Like, let me just run something by you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have had for the last, what do you think of that Moscow sour?
It's good. It's sour.
Doesn't it taste though exactly like a Moscow Mule? I don't think it tastes like beer at all.
Yeah.
All right. So for the last, let's say 20 years, roughly ish, we can even go for the last 25 years. So that way we scoop up Columbine. We have had the quote unquote school shooter, incel, bullied, denied from being able to partake in the social norms in the social groups of society, right? These individuals who have essentially said, the world hates me and I hate it, and I'm going to punish it because at least that's the one agency I can have. And there was a point where a lot of them, when you read their manifestos and their journals and things like that, where they truly actually wanted to do something heroic. They're like, well, if I can do something heroic enough, it will change the perspective people have of me. If I can be a hero and I can be Robin Hood or I can be Superman for just one day, then people will love me and I won't have to do this. And then, like, of course, that doesn't happen. And it's like, okay, now it's like I've given up hope of ever having the day where I'm Superman and people are now, and people's opinions have changed. Now it's like, I'm just going to be the thing they think I am, but punish them for it. And it's a very dark thing, but it's exactly what happens in echo chambers and with continued isolation and rejection. Right. But now, for the first time, I think in the last 25 years, outside of like truly selfless acts of heroism, where like, I don't know if you've seen this video, but like this one went famous and around the whole world. A lot of people don't know the guy's name, but it was in like Brazil, where a homeless man tackled a guy that had a girl hostage on the top of some steps, and the police just didn't have a clear shot on the guy. I think the guy maybe had a knife on the chick's neck, but this homeless man came up from the side and ran up and grabbed the guy's knife and pinned his arm away while the girl crawled away, and the police opened fire on both of them. And the homeless man got hit with like 7 stray rounds and just bled out and died there too. But he's like, there's a statue to his name that the community put together. And like, he's remembered as a true hero because he was like, I am going to get stabbed to death or I'm probably going to get shot, but that woman is not going to die. I'm going to do something about it because, and it's crazy. Like that guy did it and not another cop. Right. You know, but like, so there was a few heroes we've seen in our lifetime like that. Harambe. But like, we haven't seen the Robin Hood. We haven't seen the true, what a lot of people see as like man of the people, does what all the people wish to do. And even though I disagree with this perpetrator's actions, and I think it is a criminal act, and it is wrong, that doesn't matter. Society right now across the globe has deemed this man a hero in Robin Hood. It is across both aisles, and it's one of the things that conservatives and liberals here can shake the hands of conservatives and liberals elsewhere and be like, yep, none of us got a problem with it, right? Like, we're chill with that. Hell, it should probably happen more often. Shocking it took this long to occur. And I recognize that emotion, and I truly believe that now we may see that catalyze and become much more prolific in the vigilantism, right? In the, oh my God, I can be a hero. I can be world renowned. I can be someone that all the streamers on Twitch are talking about, and thinking, wow, someone should have done it. This guy actually took action. What balls does he have? Wow, he's so smart. Think about it. He's probably planned this all out. Wow, why did he get caught with all this stuff? It must be some part of some greater plan. And then women love you, or if you're gay men love you. Like, everyone loves you and thinks you're hot and awesome, and they want to send you fan mail. Everyone's saying free, and like they want you to get out of jail. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like, I don't have to be a villain because I've been rejected from society. I just need to find the cause where I get to be a hero. And I'm not gonna lie, man, like, that's not surprising to me. That's a fantasy that I think every young man has at some point or another, of like, oh, what would I do given that opportunity to be a hero, make a difference? And like, could I get away with doing like something that like, might have like, criminal consequences, but could I do it? And I don't even know if that's like what this perpetrator was thinking in any way, shape, or form, but I do think this perpetrator saw what they perceived as an absolute injustice, and they took action with a lot of methodical sophistication. And it was something that was immediately recognized as professional, thought through, clearly having an agenda to it. And it was precision in which no one else was harmed. Right. And I think that is also like what has won everyone over, right? It's kind of like Ted Kaczynski didn't want to kill civilians. He just wanted to stop Skynet. And Ted Kaczynski probably would have had a lot more people thinking he was Robin Hood if he wasn't bombing and, blowing up innocent lives. And so that's, I don't know. I definitely think we could see a whole, ushering of new vigilantes, right? Not like, I think we might not see as many school shooters over the next decade because they are like, oh, dude, Luigi. If Luigi's the perpetrator, he got to be a hero for one day. People love him. So I don't know. What do you think in that? Again, I say all that as someone who's like not condoning it, but just recognizing like, doesn't matter how I feel. The world feels this way. Right.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that, I do think it's interesting though, because if you game out in a way too of like, if let's say that the Trump assassination attempt was successful, what would a lot of people been commenting or saying?
I think that would have been too divisive still.
It's pretty divisive, but there's sort of been, you wouldn't see as many people, kind of being okay with it, but I feel like you would still see plenty of, he deserved it. This kid saved democracy.
I think, we would see some of that. Right. But I don't think it'd be a unilateral across aisles.
Right, for sure. And so, but as far as like the mentality of the individual, whereas this guy, like, his target was less divisive, and easier for like less politicized and like good looking, clean cut, good pedigree guy, where it's easier to be like, it is easier to be like, oh, this guy's kind of like Batman, not like, oh, this guy's just the Riddler, some freak in his basement.
Yeah.
Like, with the new, it was the Riddler in the newest Batman, right? Where he's just like, trying to.
He was in his apartment.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
I know. Right? But like, but he was in it. Yeah. But he's like
he's streaming on Twitch,
just streaming on Twitch and like
recruiting other Riddlers to do the shootings
for a social upheaval and great change.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so, I do agree with you in that there are people right now who are thinking that this is maybe their next, their moment to shine, their contribution, and so we could see very similar things play out. And hopefully it can be, I doubt it, but hopefully it can be something that does just bring the issue to the surface.
Yeah.
That to be changed in the right ways. Difficult for things to be changed peacefully. Rarely does it happen, but it is possible.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, I'll say this too, though. It's hard for me to think of another industry that has destroyed all goodwill it had with the American people. It's like, I can't even think of like, dude, you can't go and just kill the CEO of Pepsi or like McDonald's or, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people be like, whoa, what the hell?
Right.
Like, what'd they ever do? It's like, well, soda and fast food poisons us. I mean, even then, you go kill like someone who's like the CEO of Phillips, whatever it is, for tobacco and nicotine products. It's like, yeah, it's literally killing people with cancer. Yeah. But at the end of the day, people choose what they eat and they choose what they smoke and they choose what they drink. And so it's like, no, they still, I mean, they are the reason you're probably in need of health insurance in big pharma. Yet that is a choice you get to make.
Right.
Big pharma is one of those things where there's a gun to the back of your head when you join a job. And it's like, you better pay into it. And whether you want to or not, you will through Medicare. And that tax will be taken out of your paycheck and it will go to them. And there's a good chance when you need that and you should have it, it will be denied and you will be refused. And that's like, gosh, man, that is, I don't know. Again, I can't think of another industry that's just soiled it. Like, that's just done that. Like, I would not, I don't think I could see like unilateral support for like, doing this to like big oil.
Right.
I can't see unilateral support, of course, if it was at like even a defense company. Like if someone killed like the person who like the company that was designing, drones that were bombing schools. I still think people be like, well, like you can't kill that person for doing it because people are misusing their product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. The hard thing about it though is like, what did it actually do to fix the system? Because like we said, like the new CEO
might not have been about fixing it.
Right. It's a statement. But that's what I'm saying too. That's what I'm saying. I think it's all a statement, but at the cost of life. And so it's hard to go like, all right, like what if the goals change, then unfortunately to do it the way this guy wants to do it, you actually just really have to sharpen up the guillotine, line everybody up and send them all through it.
Yeah.
And that is, as far as this guy's course of action. So that's where it's like I think it's a huge, large statement and it's getting people's attention.
Yeah. Speaking of that, actually, I have a recommendation for you.
Really?
I'll send you the video and I think you should watch because I think it's actually very profound and incredibly well done. Let me just pull it up on YouTube. I won't play it, but just so I know and credit the person who created it. But this guy like some mad Lovecraftian main character.
Mm-hmm.
Just decided one day to begin building a guillotine in the backyard of his house in Florida.
Oh my gosh. Of course it was in Florida.
But he wears like a lot of like the way he dresses is like, I don't know, maybe like you could say like Civil War era clothing.
Okay.
And so he's just like out there building it by hand, you know, hammer, making his own nails.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Rusty Cage. And he has done a lot of really good videos. And when you watch him, you're like, this is someone who's far too young to be this damaged.
Oh yeah.
And he did one where he's like, I think it was what I watched right after watching his guillotine series.
Mm-hmm.
But it was essentially him just saying, my last drink, I'm going sober. And he just confessed, like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm addicted to alcohol, and I accept that now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going 30 days sober.
Mm-hmm.
And he did like a 30-day sobriety thing, and it was brutal. It was very rough. It was very honest. And it was actually like only like 14 days and then another 30-day restart.
Mm-hmm.
But he like recorded the whole thing. He's like, fucked up. I let myself have one and I got blackout drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I don't know, but it's so very raw. But Rusty Cage, he does insanely I would say like a Cajun folk music that is usually political commentary. But like this guillotine starts out as like time to build a guillotine, right? And then he makes a song about it, like get your head chopped off, and he's like, this is actually the most dangerous lemonade stand. And then it's kind of like keeps on going, and then it's like society is collapsing, society's a horrible thing. You know, they built the guillotine to originally punish peasants and criminals, but the peasants and criminals are the ones that eventually took it and marched everyone else to the guillotine and, you know, executed their leaders to restart and rebuild. And the final one was just the end of him building this, and he made a song called the Guillotine Song, and it's the line it is like, let's all go to the guillotine and we can lose our heads. And it's just literally like a kind of like, it's like this, it's like, you know, society's broken, but like even if we marched all of the leaders to the guillotine, that would not fix it. We might as well like just all line up and take it. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things of like, it's not a solution to the problem that anyone really wants to accept, because it would require a complete execution of the problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like once you execute all the leaders, you realize like, okay, now we also need to be executed to follow through on it.
Yeah, because like now you got to solve the problem.
Yeah, and it was just very profound and very philosophical, and you can see very clearly like he's going through a brutal mental health journey in these videos. And yes, I do think some of it is like acting and charades a little bit, but I don't think a lot of it is. Like there's one where like some Florida storm comes through, and this dead tree comes down and damages the guillotine. And he talks about like how he's literally having a mental breakdown because he cannot tell which of these damn trees is dead or alive, because it's I mean, Florida's a swamp, right? And he's like, it feels like the trees are trying to kill me. It feels like the trees are trying to destroy my house, crush me. And it's just like this mental exhaustion and fatigue of like dealing with the elements and all that, only to build something that ultimately at the end of it is like, I built it and the only use I have for it is to guillotine myself. You know what I mean? Like you reach the journey at the end of like, did I just build my own execution? I don't know. It's very philosophical, but you should watch. It's very well done. He's a freaking crazy talented guy. And he's very entertaining. And he's like, I mean, like, you know, I'm preaching to the choir here because I bet there's quite a few kin who have heard of him. He's got 1.7 million subscribers on YouTube. So, you know, it's not like he needs us to be advocating for his content, but I do think he's a great content creator.
Oh man. Yeah. The guillotine. Didn't work out for old France too good. They still had to go through a few more iterations to figure their stuff out.
Yeah, I'm not ruling out France bringing it back.
Oh yeah,
you know, what I mean, France is having a hard time over there.
They're not sure what to do,
and I think our French neighbors to the north might bring it back.
That's getting a little wild too up there.
Yeah, I think, man, like there has never been more of like a social experiment in my eyes than the like Canadian politics. And like a very, very, I think, tolerant right wing of politics that is like very not threatening, you know, very patient, tolerant side of it. Yes, they do a lot of like insults and name calling and all that, but like that's just politics. And I think like can you imagine, bro, if Biden said nationwide ban and confiscation of all firearms so we can send them to Ukraine, like we would not have that kind of patient, tolerant, which I think is a good thing. You know what I mean? I think like the right would stand up and be like, no, like good luck doing that. And I'm like legit wondering, like, will we see the next like North American Civil War in Canada? Like, could there, like, I could see this becoming a civil I'm like going on the Canadian gun owners Reddit and just like reading around. And I'm not saying, you know, piss all, because I don't want to be, you know, cited as a source of insurrection or whatever, or stoking the fires. But I am reading it and I'm like, dude, there's no way these guys are turning dick all in. Because a lot of people don't realize, like, once you get out of Toronto, that nation is not very like, I trust the government. You know, that nation is probably almost more paranoid of the government than most Americans.
Oh, yeah. And I was watching a video on their Congress or whatever they have all circled up talking about the proposed tariffs from Trump.
Yeah.
And it was like just it's funny how this might be overstating, but they really are dependent on our economy for their economy.
For real.
In a lot of ways. Like,
same with Mexico.
Yeah. And it's like it's like, and so it's funny because they can like do and say whatever they want to do. And like, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like being the son-in-law of some dude owns a big company and he gave it to his son.
Yeah.
And then there's the son-in-law.
Yeah.
And he's got a great life.
Yeah, because he married
Yeah.
And he's married in.
Yeah. And he's always like, my freaking like brother-in-law doesn't know what the hell he's doing over there. It's stupid, you know, like all these things. It's like, yeah, but he's running the company and you're doing good. You know, it's kind of like so you have like the
piss and moan about him, but like be thankful for his paychecks.
Yeah, like you're allowed. Like you have the blessing of being able to be critical or whatever. And so as they've they like hitch their wagon on like the California politics train. They're just like, and now potentially we're not continuing on in that direction. It's getting hard on them.
Yeah. Yeah. I legit am almost like thinking like, you know, it's a social experiment, right? Because it's how many times do you hear Americans say like, oh my gosh, that's so paranoid to think if the government was to take our guns, the next step would be enslavement and like abuse of power. It's like, I mean, that is what happens. That like, look at in Mexico, like how brutal the consequences are if you even are found with a bullet.
Yeah.
Let alone a firearm. Like, also, just look at Germany. Nazi Germany, man. First thing the Nazis did was go around and round up all the firearms before they started rounding up the people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's happened time and time again. And so it's one of those things where, like, we keep on saying, like, hey, history repeats itself. If you disarm the population, the next thing is to remove an aspect of the population. And I'm like, two things are going to happen. Either one of two things is going to happen. Either the population is going to disarm themselves and we'll see an abuse of power, or the population will refuse to disarm themselves and we'll see an abuse of power. Mm-hmm. It's just which one of those are we going to see, and will people come around and recognize it and finally be like, oh shit, well, that wouldn't happen in America, and make all these excuses, or are they going to be like, oh, actually, no, okay, like it's just right there and it's plain before my eyes to see, like it's probably not a good thing for government to try to disarm the populace.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's funny. It feels so clear cut to me.
Yeah.
But then other people feel very differently.
Dude, I know people who have said to me, they're like, if someone told me today to like turn it in my shotgun, I would. Mm-hmm. And I just am legit, like I lay awake at night. I'm like, gosh, I wonder if that friend, if someone pressed them, they'd be like, oh, I know where there's a bunch of guns. You could go to Mick's house.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I just wonder, like, would they roll over on me? Mm-hmm. Because it is really hard to make me think, like, if you want to stand up for your own right to, like, protection and, like, that, like, right to defend yourself and have that power and authority and responsibility, then you're probably not going to stand up for mine and my choice to have that, right?
Yeah.
It makes me really sad because there's a lot of people I think about who I really love deeply that I think just do not have a true comprehension of, like, the privilege it is to still have the ability to defend yourself and put your foot down if you feel like, oh, like this is a malicious force trying to abuse me and my family. Like I need to now, like, defend us. So.
Yeah. And I think that I don't want to ever have to be tested, but I always wonder in myself, how would I actually react to these things? Because I'll tell you what, I might talk a big game, but when I get those red and blue lights behind me, I'm hyper compliant. You know, I'm like,
really, yeah.
But at the same, it's like, I think there is like in me, and I think in a lot of people, there is a particular line that just is going to be like, we don't cross these lines.
Yeah, dude, I've asked myself if I hear like a knock. Is that AGF? One, I'd kiss Takani.
Yeah.
And I'd say, I love you, doggy. You're the best damn doggy the world ever knew. Because I know she's not making it through it. And then I think honestly, the last thing I think is, gosh dang, it's a good thing that I have that $1 million in life insurance for my wife and kids. Because I know, one, even if I blow my own brains out, they'll get it. And two, if I go down in a hail of gunfire, they'll get it. I would never, unless it was, you know, like a truly foreign force or whatever that I knew was just going to rape and pillage or whatever my children and family. Like, I would never force them to make their stand with me.
Right.
I would be like, my wife and kids are coming out. But me and my guns are not. You know what I mean? And like, and then if they're like, all right, well, we're coming in, I'd be like, cowabunga, dudes, let's party.
I know, and it's like,
and like that's honestly where I've made my peace of mind. And I genuinely think if I didn't have health insurance, I might not have that. I mean, not health insurance, life insurance. If I didn't have life insurance, I don't know if I'd have that peace of mind. This is not an ad, but like, get it.
I'd say, but also, if it's come to that point, no one's paying out life insurance anymore. Like
you don't think so?
I think at that point, I think all the systems are getting pretty busted. But I will say,
Ruby Ridge, bro.
I might just hand them over.
You think you would?
Because I might have some others somewhere else.
Dude, that is one thing I've been thinking about. Is like making some caches.
I got a buddy.
Like, oh yeah, officer. Here are my 5 high points and my 5 1022s.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, wait, where's the good shit? It's like, oh, I got rid of all that.
We've got a mutual buddy who has he has a safe and then a decoy safe, and it's not the safe guy. Yeah, but he
I don't know who the safe guy is out of our buddies.
The safe guy owns like 48 safes. He's got a problem.
What?
He owns like 12.
I need to buy one from him.
Yeah, he'll help you buy one.
Really?
He'll also help you buy gold.
Oh, that guy. But I need that guy to help me. I know who that guy is.
But one of our buddies, he has like a safe hidden. He was able to drywall it.
Oh yeah.
Behind where he wants it to be. like a kind of hidden thing or whatever. It's like all his good stuff's in there, and he has like a crappy safe with just a couple of like rifles in it. And he's like, so he can just be like
the decoy.
And for whatever, all sorts of things. Like even if you get robbed.
Oh yeah,
you know, excellent. Like they take like you keep like $300 in cash and an old rifle in there. They'll take that and leave.
It's like the classic thing of like, it's also like a thing to do that like mules do with law enforcement, right? Mules be bringing a shitload of drugs over, and they'll like, if a cop pulls them over and they know, they're like, okay, like they're gonna be looking for anything they can, right? You know, like
show them the acceptable amount, the personal baggie.
Not even that, but just like give them the easy victory, give them the easy win. Of like, you get pulled over, just immediately admit to like, yeah, I recognize I was speeding. And the officer's like, well, I didn't pull you over for speeding. It's like, oh, well, officer, I was.
Yeah.
Boom. Okay, well, I'll write you the ticket over that, or give you a warning, right? You know, or whatever, or like, you know, whatever it is, that's the super easy one. So that way they just don't care to continue to investigate the vehicle or something like that. Now, you can't do that if you're dumb and stupid and you're, you know, driving drug. And I say this as like, you know, I say this because I know this is like in a lot of law enforcement training, right? I'm not advocating for you to be a mule, but you can't be a dumbass and be drinking and smoking weed and think like, oh, here, officer, I'll give you my beer. And like, you're going to no, dude, they're going to arrest you and they're going to look for anything else in your car that they can find.
Yeah.
Like if they have that kind of smell and things like that, they're going the, you know, full 10 yards. But anyways, so all that said, yeah, pretty interesting. Pretty like, I guess, you know, spicy episode, bro. Talked about Airbnbs burning down. Talked about cartel and FBI star-crossed lovers. Talked about you picking up a crazed homeless man. Vigilante and American healthcare and the corruption of our system and the dying of society, and ultimately, would we go quietly into that darkness? If I knew, I do want to do some cachets, and if I knew they were out there, like I'd be like, yeah, sure, you can have whatever. Idiots! I'm gonna just go get my third cachet.
And also, like, I might let them have it, and I'll just move to Yemen. You know, just like, all right.
Why Yemen?
Because you can buy grenades in the market.
Do the Yemenis?
You got to blend in pretty good. They don't like you.
I was going to say, like, one, will that government be chill with you owning those things, or do they still come around and kill you if they find you with it?
No, it's good fun. It's all good fun. It's literally like in the market. You go down to like the market. You can buy some lettuce, buy some hummus, buy like, you know what, maybe probably some cot. And then you can get a belt fed.
Hell yeah. For like $80.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Some quad nods.
Yeah. And then like, yeah, the police do come and then they're like, oh, we're not messing with that today. We don't care about that.
Yeah.
Anyways, Yemen.
That's crazy, bro.
Potential retirement home options.
Part of me,
the Houthis out there.
Part of me does like fantasize of like just the whole thing of like, you know, what would you do if everything that you were responsible for and was keeping you a productive member of society here vanished tomorrow, and you had nothing left to live for? Like,
what would you do?
Yeah, and part of me is like, oh well, I guess I don't know, go and like train with the Yakuza, like you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like just some crazy stuff. I guess I just would teach Yemenites how to be good with a pistol, and just so they leave me alone.
I'll get a huge chest tattoo that goes up to all the way up to my chin.
Yeah,
you know, because why?
Why not? Yeah. Anyways, crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. In no way do I condone murder or vigilantism. Actually, dude, I do condone that one. I'll say it right now. I condone vigilantism of like
in general, like as a, like sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I'll be honest, bro. Like a lot of people, the line of vigilantism and like defense of others, self-defense is pretty blurry for some people. In my eyes, I see like, you know, killing someone that you see is like trying to rape a woman in a park. I view that as vigilantism. I'm all for that. a woman who kills her super abusive husband who's been molesting her and her children. That's technically vigilantism. Mm-hmm. And I'm chill with that. Mm-hmm. 1,000,000%. Always be behind her and advocate for her and like support her, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like there's aspects of that. I'm not for the, hey, what if we all like put on our hoodies and ski masks and we go and like just look for bad guys tonight.
Right.
I'm like, you're probably gonna misidentify someone.
Because I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Great movie. Anyways, so what else? Get a dog and listen to our Christmas list recommendations so that way you have a gift in time for your loved ones and family. Pat?
Till next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.